Right bang in the middle of Asbestos Awareness Week. We, in fact, did an interview earlier this week about some of the issues that are there in relation to asbestos still. But there's one organisation which has been advocating for asbestos disease victims for decades, and it doesn't think that the discussion about the deadly product has been frank and honest enough. For example, why is a product banned in 2003, should have been a lot earlier than that, by the way, banned in 2003, still allowed to sit in and around thousands and thousands and thousands of homes without any audit of the risks or any attempt to encourage people to remove and replace their asbestos eaves, their roofs or fences? That's just one line of questioning from the Asbestos Diseases Society of Australia, and they continue to ask those questions. Melita Markey is its chief executive, and she joins me now. Hi, Melita.
Hi, Gary. Lovely to chat to you this morning about this very important issue.
Well, I was going to say, let me just start. You said to us that 4,000 deaths are still being attributed to asbestos exposure every year, okay? And you say that it's a figure that's unlikely to change because the ban that was put in place in 2003 did not extend to asbestos materials already in place. Do you know why?
Well, I think at the time, the absolute magnitude of the problem, because we're talking about 6.2 million tonnes in the built environment, the magnitude alone of removing it and mobilising, you could actually create more disease by actually with dodgy removals and not handling it appropriately.
Right.
It was felt best perhaps to take a more pragmatic approach if it's in situ and it's painted and it's left alone. Perhaps that was the best way forward. They also didn't negotiate a product recall with the manufacturer, which I feel is a great failure as well. However, they could have mitigated this issue, Gary, by at the same time investing in medical research and treatment. So therefore, you have a balance. You can have a steady approach to perhaps helping homeowners through their tax rebates, a various number of ways to help them afford the cost of removing it, and also getting a certification of workers to remove it so you know it's being done in a professional manner, and at the same time investing in treatments. So what we have now is more cases emerging from DIY and homeowners now coming forward. It's the fastest growing cohort, but there's no treatments for them because we've only got what we can invest in just by going begging in for grants, because what we have a fundamental flaw in our health system, our public health funding system, and that we do not prioritise what is described as industrial or workers' diseases.
Are you saying that it's been forgotten to some degree? Because in recent weeks, of course, we've been talking about silicosis and engineered bench tops, which some big companies have decided to ban, IKEA and Bunnings and so on, and clearly the federal government are looking at other issues around that. But are you saying that asbestos, because it was all that time ago that we started to realise how deadly it was, it's sort of like been forgotten, neglected?
Well, I know there's key strategies right now happening with the ACTU to look to try and achieve funding for homeowners to help them to remove it. So that's in place. But that's going to take a very long time, Gary, and there's still so much out there and there's still so much disease because you've got to look at the people that have already been exposed quite innocently. And you're also looking at the time now with the silicosis, engineered stone ban, I wrote to the people driving those bans and I said to them, listen, we can't make the same mistake twice. Great opportunity. When you're seeking to ban this, also ask for a parcel of funding through the public health funding so that we can invest in dust diseases in general. Because at the moment, there's no dedicated investment in dust diseases or any industrial workers' diseases. It's considered the parts for the insurers to pay for. So they'll just pay you compensation. They're not interested in putting heaps of money into medical research or treatments. It really needs to sit within the public health department, a dedicated stream of funding, because this is a huge issue. There's younger and younger people developing mesothelioma, and we need to be really mindful of that their exposure has not come from a workplace. We still have 6 million tonnes of it. So you've got asbestos pipes still pumping water and materials through because the buildings were built many years ago. I got sent a photo from Sir Charles Gardner Hospital in the male toilets, and there's a sign saying, do not be conscious when you drill behind here, there's asbestos, because so much asbestos board was used to cover for tiles, to tile on.
Yep.
So it's just, there's so much of it. We have to be so conscious of our poor tradies, they have to deal with it in their environment, and sometimes you just don't know that it's there.
See, you're right, because they don't just have to work with it in an environment where they're going to remove it because it's been identified. They have to go to an environment where they might stumble across it, not expecting it,
Absolutely.
and therefore they're exposed. I mean, that can be, as I know personally, that can be like tree loppers who might go into a backyard to start removing trees and then realise that under the dirt that they're grinding through, there's actually broken asbestos fence parts, pieces. Why has there never been a proper audit of risk areas and then an assistance program to help people remove it, as opposed to just making it the public's responsibility when they come across it? So what's going on there?
Look, it's been, I think part of the problem has been, obviously changing governments. We have a federal asbestos eradication agency, and they have recently released a strategic plan to look at all this and to then go and lobby the government to actually try and fund this. But it just seems to be, it's all too hard, Gary. There's 3 million tonnes of asbestos sitting up there in the Pilbara. Half of the problem that's across the whole of Australia. In the whole of Australia, it's a major problem with 4,000 cases a year, and we don't have that dedicated funding. So you're absolutely right. We've got a real opportunity now, looking at the engineered stone, to say, right, we're going to ban this. It's dangerous. We've had a lot of people exposed, particularly, say, in the mines, a lot of silica cases coming from the mining. So we've got a lot of dust diseases that we're looking at here, and we need to be able to have the dedicated research funding. We've got the great physicians here because they see so much of it in WA. I've got the highest incidence in the world.
Yep.
Why not have a workers' health institute where they can have all the money to work on these diseases? Why not have the public health have separate funding? Right now, public health funding just looks at, chronic disease, mental health, these sorts of things. You go into chronic disease, you go in there with asbestos-related cancers or silicosis-related cancers, and there's no really treatments in there because no one's focused in that area. But yet we have so many cases of it. We have, more cases than the road toll.
Yeah.
But then you go and ask for funding and they say, no, we want to invest in injuries from road accidents.
Yeah.
Gary, I'd love to sit down with you one day in my office and show you all my rejection letters from the Public Health Department.
Right. Because it certainly continues to pose more of a threat than the pandemic too.
Oh, absolutely, Gary, absolutely. And this is, again, because it's not classified in the public health funding, it gets ignored. It really frustrates me that you can go to work and go, FIFO work is dangerous. You're going up there, you're in mining, you're in the Pilbara, there's a lot of work. Say, for example, with, silica, you're a tradie going to work, working hard, you've accidentally hit some asbestos or you're forced to grind engineered stone on a site because it doesn't fit. You can't really put a tap on and wet it in the middle of an apartment building. It's not functional. So you're put in these situations where you just say, well, I have to get the job done. I've got work, I've got so much to do back to back to back. So you're actually out there doing an honest day's living and then no one's looking after you at the end.
Now, Melita, if there's people listening, by the way, who know that they've got asbestos in and around their property and haven't been certain what to do about it or what rights they've got to be able to try and get help, or if you've stumbled across it when you were out in the backyard and you found particles under the soil of an old asbestos fence, give us a call, 133 882, and tell us what happened. Because here's the point. There are pages and pages under a code of practice in relation to OC health and safety for workers, right? I mean, it exists. There are all sorts of rules governing it. But my point is that it's
there's nothing for the public.
No,
is
there? not. I mean, I went onto the Cancer Council workplace, which talk about the extraordinary exposure to asbestos that's out there in the community, and it sort of goes through some advice about it. But really, the public are left to their own devices on this.
They are. And if you go into the Tenancy Act, it's even worse as a tenant.
In what way? What do you mean?
Yeah, there's a huge issue. There's a lot of protection, as you say, for workers, But unfortunately, a lot of that, they're still at risk because they're working far. It's very difficult for them. And then you also go, yes, for the public, there's actually no real help. You know, we've been running a screening program for close to 40 years now. People can come and get tested if they're concerned, and we monitor them. Particularly, you know, people that were children in Wittenoom or unfortunately were sent to Wittenoom Hospital. Because remember, Wittenoom Hospital stayed open until 1985. And so we've had people that were sent there. They broke their leg on the side of the road with the workers' crew. It was closer than Tom Price, so they took them to Wittenoom. They were there for a week and now have got mesothelioma.
Right. Yep.
So, you know, I heard a gentleman talking from Adri talking about how Wittenoom asbestos is still affecting a huge amount of the population, people that were up there on tours, school children that went on school tours. School tours were only stopped in the early 90s after the Crown Solicitor's Office wrote to the schools and said, please don't take children to camps at Wittenoom. So long after that closed in 66, Gary, people were just not paying real attention to it.
Well,
okay. So there's a whole generation of people that really need to be getting tested and checked, because the sooner you can track any sign of disease, you can make better health choices to help you.
All right. Well, we're raising the awareness again today. I have an analogy. I'll finish with this and tell me what you think. I am, you know, as someone who's got a pool in their backyard, I am the subject of an inspection. You know, well, they can do it each year. They can do it randomly, whatever. But I have all these things I have to comply with in relation to a pool in the backyard, because it poses a threat. There is nothing, zero, that makes me have to abide by anything in relation to the asbestos that is undoubtedly around my old house. What do you think of that as an analogy?
Gary, you're absolutely spot on. And let me tell you, there's some very scary workplaces. We had got asbestos removal guys. We do a lot of their testing for them and health monitoring. And they came in so shattered. They were in an old gymnasium removing friable, that's very old, crumbly asbestos from pipes in the roof. And beneath, there's a gym running. So people are in there going and doing so and breathing in asbestos. It's not just in and around the homes. There's a lot of old businesses, buildings. There's still a lot in schools.
Yeah, and even
so we really need to step back and take a strong, like you say, an audit. Let's just own it. Let's just own the problem and get on with it.
The first point being the audit gets done and you get a notification in your mailbox saying, look, you know, given the age of your house and so on, we've done an inspection. We believe this is the case. Now we can subsidise the help and help you remove it. But until that happens, people just sit there knowing that they've got it and they think, okay, hopefully it doesn't get disturbed. Hopefully I don't have an issue with it, you know, fingers crossed. But that's it. That's where we're at right now in terms of domestic asbestos in and around properties.
And Gary, you are amazing, because this is the conversation that's needed to be had.
All right. Well, we're having it.
So thank you very much.
All right. And, of course, it is Asbestos Awareness Week. That's why we're having it. Appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Gary.
Melita Markey there, CEO of Asbestos Diseases Society. And, you know, you may remember the name Robert Vajakovic. They've been hard at it for years. Trying to get stuff done, not you know, as an extension to the fact that they represent those people who are up against the corporation, responsible for their deaths and responsible for their injuries because of the knowledge that was around deadly asbestos a long time ago before anyone was being told. But they're doing more. They're trying to say that it's still there, it's still in the community, it's still around your houses. Who's seriously auditing it and trying to help you in the removal process, if that's what you want to do? 9:22. I'd love to get your feedback on it. 133 882 is the number. We've got that clean heat gas, $100 for our talkback caller of the day as well, by the way. Back soon.
Call Gary now. 133 882.